Now we did a survey about GB News this week. They've been in the news because of the behaviour of some of their presenters and guests. Misogynistic comments made and suspensions have been made, and there's been lots of complaints about GB News. And I wanted to find out what people thought on the subscribers about the channel. So I put some surveys out. These are some of the results of the surveys. Ofcom has received over 7,000 complaints about GB News. Do you think GB News is being given preferential treatment from the broadcasting watchdog? Yes, 67%. It seems ridiculous to have 7,000 complaints. And we've got, do you think people should refuse to speak on GB News, i.e. left-wing commentators? Pretty split, really. 54% say yes. Now that issue's been quite aired quite a lot. People saying on social media, I wouldn't speak on GB News. I refuse to speak on GB News, and it's raised some issues about boycotting as a strategy. Now we've got on the show. We've got a couple of people who have spoken on GB News. James Schneider's here. How you doing, James?
I'm very well. How you doing? Nice to be with you.
I'm good. Yeah, just trying to sort out all these issues of the day. And Dr. Bob Gill as well has appeared on GB News. So what I'll ask you first, James. What's your justification for appearing on a channel that comes out with seriously right-wing stuff, misogynistic and also racist stuff about refugees? The treatment, the way they demonize and dehumanize refugees is appalling. Why would it be any advantage to go on there?
You're quite right. It's absolutely appalling. GB News is a hate factory. And the way that we should look at pretty much all of the media is it serves to perpetuate the power of those that are already in power. And some of them, there are different factions of ruling class opinion that come out through different bits of the media. And GB News represents the hard right attempt solution for the ruling class. So by going on, I of course do not endorse their politics at all, in the same way that I do not endorse the politics of Sky News or Channel 4 or anyone else. All of which I think are antithetical to socialism. But why go on? I go on in order to try to throw sand in the wheels of that hate factory's process. So I don't go on and nod when they say that there should be pushbacks of refugee boats in the channel. I explain how that is horrific and what that means. And that's in the case of going on any media at any point, GB News or otherwise, you've got to be aware of whether you are able to more put forward your argument and position and slow down what they're trying to do or not. And that's what I try to do when I go on. There will be occasions probably when that doesn't go quite right, but I think in the main, that's happening. Then there's one other argument element to it, which is the arguments that they are testing, the narratives that they are testing out on GB News against net zero, against migrants and refugees, ramping up racism, transphobia. They're not staying on that channel. They are being tried out so that they can come more mainstream. And we see that, you're seeing that again and again. Sunak stuff on net zero, all of those talking points that he is now coming out with are lines that GB News hosts and shows have been trying out. So I have a sort of a secondary personal reason for going on, which is to see ahead of time the direction that the right and the dominant right is going, and try to develop arguments against that.
Right. Okay. But Dr. Bob, what's your position on this? Because I've seen you've been on GB News.
Yeah, I think James has made the case for going on there, I think, brilliantly. It's a platform. It's an opportunity to give the audience for GB News the alternative. It's never a comfortable experience, because often what I'm saying is being pushed back very hard against. But, you know, platforms like the BBC and Channel 4 and ITV aren't really interested in hearing what I have to say, because it highlights what they are not saying. The mainstream media does a lot of censorship by omission, and they deal with, particularly the NHS, they deal with a minor current scandal or problem, but they don't give you the overview. And, you know, there was one opportunity on GB News I had to go up against a pro-privatization think tank expert, and we had half an hour. And that half an hour, you know, I believed I sort of dismantled his arguments such that he was getting into the territories of being, you know, just dishing out slurs, conspiracy theorists and all this sort of nonsense. But not only do you get the opportunity to challenge them, but, you know, when there's a big dearth of material out there, I use what they produce to cascade that message and to amplify the message that I'm trying to put out. So if they produce a video clip, well, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it to make the points that I want to make.
Right. I mean, we've seen that with, I think we've seen that with Aaron Bustani and others who've used those clips on their own social media. Now, I'm just going to, I was going to play a video of something that caught my eye and almost brought me, it was really a reason why I wanted this discussion in the first place. This is filmed outside GB News, and I'm going to bring on one of the people in the video. James is also in this one a bit later.
You're part of it.
You're part of it, and you planted that seed for black women to get abused.
You give credibility to GB News by going on GB News.
I go on GB News. Of course, I go on GB News.
Yeah.
The man who cleans my windows watches GB News. I think I would want him to receive left behind. Yes.
Well, they agree with you.
Yeah, they agree with you because you're spreading their propaganda.
Coletti fits very well on GB News.
The Jewish Chronicle gets off on IPSO complaints.
You just don't get it, do you? You just don't get it. You're dismissing everything.
You don't get it. We disagree.
Well, you don't, because you know
you're not trans, you're not black, and you're not a black woman. You're not from a marginalised.
you don't understand. You just want to be ignorant. You know it, but you choose to be ignorant.
The thing is, we have to stop saying.
3 weeks ago, Marlon.
It doesn't. It's about solidarity, Aaron. You're half Iranian, yeah? You're a brown man.
He knows his country's right wing, so he's going to sell himself out to the right wing.
Yeah.
Of course. That's how I feel. I feel like you sitting on the couch getting comfy. It's almost you sitting shoulder to shoulder with the far right. And it's so uncomfortable to watch.
Do you know what it looks like, James? I know James very well. You know what it looks like, James? It looks like you are prepared to sit on any platform and speak on any platform because you just need that, I don't know, you need the attention. That's what it looks like. Because I just think if you have a strong political position, you can't just go along with everything. At some point, you've got to take a stand.
No.
And if you know that black and you know how I work, if you know that black campaigning organisations are really aggrieved by a certain channel that puts out racist material all of the time, then why are you entertaining it? That's how I feel. Like, you know all of us, you know a lot of activists in our movement. No. Why are you doing that? It's offensive to us. It will stop me from working with you on any level.
Okay, that's good. As I said, that's good, and I know Didi for a long time. Okay. That's good to hear and good to know. My previous assessment of it is when I go on, I am challenging the things that they say. I'm arguing with them, and it's like not every time will I've got it right or been the most robust I can be. But I think if you look at a lot of what I've said, I've been pretty robust in standing up for kind of our type of politics against the hate and the shit that they're putting forward. But as I say, like I don't feel 100% solid about it because they're in control of the platform, they're in control of how it's presented, and I know that I'm intervening on their thing. So, like, I'm not saying I'm getting it right always, but that's my logic.
Now, Marlon's on the call. Thank you for coming, Marlon. Good to see you. Now, look, the word that I heard on that clip was solidarity. And on your shirt, I mean, I can't believe you've wearing a shirt. I was just thinking it. Is that's really important in what you're saying? You know, if we're not showing solidarity with people who are attacked on that channel, I mean, how can you show solidarity? That would be a way of doing it, wouldn't it? Not attending the channel, not going on.
Hi, Crispin. Thanks for having me on. Solidarity is a verb, it's not a noun. For me, it takes place on the streets, not on the tweets. And I've seen over the last several years, speaking as a Black working class man, a lot of these so-called left-leaning individuals and left-leaning organizations, I say quote unquote left, they say they're for marginalized communities, they say they're for Black people, they say they're for trans people, but they're sitting on sofas with a far-right organization. They're getting paid by far-right organizations. They're laughing, and as you saw in the video, shaking hands with far-right individuals. You cannot sit next to a far-right individual, laugh with them, get paid by them, and in the same breath say that you're standing for marginalized communities. Because as a Black man who hasn't got a huge platform like the Aaron Bastanis or the Ash Sarkers or the Owen Jones, it makes me feel sick to see that these people are the so-called leaders of the left. Aaron Bastani, in one of the videos actually, which hasn't been uploaded yet, because there's more videos to come, which really expose how Aaron Bastani sees Black people. He actually says, he admits that him, Owen Jones, and Novara Media police the online left. I don't want Owen Jones or Novara Media or Aaron Bastani to be policing anyone, particularly people like me, or trans people, or Black people. The reason why I went to GB News was not to confront Aaron Bastani. The reason why I went there was to show solidarity Kelechi Okafor. So I'll quickly go into this, because I know we don't have much time. Thank you. Kelechi Okafor is a writer, a podcast host, an actor, and she's an activist, and she's quite prominent in the community. She's a Black woman, a single Black woman. She made a really in-depth video about Lucy Letby and the correlation between white women, how they're protected by white men and by the institutions. And this has been happening since Queen Elizabeth I, all the way to Carolyn Bryan and Amy Cooper. These are names that you should probably Google if you don't know who they are. And she stated, those of us who have been paying attention are not shocked that someone who looks like Lucy could do such things, because we've seen women like her wield their violence in similar and different ways. So the video is about 6 minutes long. I suggest anyone who hasn't seen it goes and watch it now. And it's a really in-depth, substantial video about white privilege from a white woman in regards to white women. So what happened was the three leaders of Novara Media jumped on this tweet and they critiqued it and they misinformed their audience in regards to what Kelechi was trying to say. So it started off with Ash Sarker, and Michael did the same thing, and so did Aaron Bastani. Now, in total, I believe they've got like more than 500,000 Twitter followers. And because of this, Kelechi got an onslaught of abuse and violence laid at her on social media. Fox News, Freudian slip. GB News saw what was happening. So GB News saw the red meat and they thought they took it. So they took it and they did a program about Kelechi, and it had Kwasi Kwarteng on it, which was disgusting because he called Kelechi a race baiter and he called her a jackass. And Dan Wootton called her, and I don't want to misquote Dan Wootton because I know what he's like with his legal state. He called her the acceptable face of racism and bigotry. Again, from that, she got lots of death threats. She got lots of abuse. She's a single Black woman. So I decided to do a protest outside GB News. And that's when we encountered James and Aaron.
Right. So you weren't intending to see Aaron and James. It just happened that they came across, and you wanted to make that issue, put that issue out there. And what's the response been, do you think, to your videos and what you did there? What would you say most people are saying?
Do you know what? I think a lot of people have had reservations about Novara Media for the last several years. And I can see some people on the chat saying, but Kwasi Kwarteng's Black. what a lot of people need to understand, and to be fair, Crispin, I don't know if you're going to find this offensive, but I feel like a lot of people on the left and on this conversation right now are white. So they don't understand the complexities of racism and how racism is endemic and how it shapeshifts and it morphs. In order to survive how many hundreds of years, it has to adapt to the times. So what's happening now is we have the most diverse cabinet in history. However, a lot of these people in positions of power who are from Black or Asian backgrounds are used as tools of white supremacy. We've seen what Suella Braverman did this week. We've seen what Kwasi Kwarteng has done. We've seen what Rishi Sunak has done. And the same thing is happening with the Ash Sarkars and the Aaron Bastanis, who are South Asian and half Iranian, respectively. They both are tools of white supremacy. They've both put out anti-Black statements on Twitter, and I have got screenshots, and I actually said these to Aaron Bastani. And they are so oblivious to how it actually affects people like me on the left, the real left, who actually does grassroots work. They don't actually understand how much it has an adverse effect on all of us. So us on the Black left, we are sick and tired of these people who are cosplaying as leftists. Yeah, you only have to look at how Diana Abbott's been treated over the last 30 years. You only have to look at the Ford report, how nothing was done with that. Black Lives Matter was a moment, according to Sir Keir Starmer. The Black people on the left are sick and tired. So that's why we're starting to speak truth to power. We're not going to be passive and polite anymore. We are going to reclaim the word angry and aggressive, which I was called by Michelle Dewberry, who's a right-winger. And we are going to speak truth to power, and we are going to put our feet on the neck of any individual institution who puts out anti-Black rhetoric.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Like, there's people want to come in, so I'm just going to bring. I'll come back to you, James and Bob, in a bit. Just hear some other people. Is that all right? Richard's put his hand up, and what would you like to say, Richard?
Yeah. Hi. Marlon. GB News. As much as I don't like it, it does have a huge audience. So it's kind of this idea that they shouldn't come on people like James and people like Aaron. How are they supposed to put their ideas forward to these people? Because I think their audience, maybe on like economic issues, they might be like left wing, but in terms of like social issues, a cultural type of thing, they're very right wing. So how on earth are you going to get people to support the left cause if they don't hear stuff from Aaron and James? I don't think they agree with them. They just have to go on there, just like Corbyn had to go on Sky News.
How much do they get paid to go on these platforms?
I don't know. You need to
ask. It's not voluntary. It's not voluntary, is it? They're obviously getting some kind of fee, so it's not they're forced to do it.
Yeah, I understand, but they need to put their point across. If you want to get people on side, you need to they have to put their point across. I don't think they agree with them.
Right. What do you want to say, Marlon? Anything on that, Marlon? Then I'll bring up.
Yeah, lots to say. So what I do is I do a lot of community activism. I do a lot of grassroots work. I do a lot of volunteering work. I do lots of mutual aid. I have a very, very small platform. So Twitter and Instagram have suppressed me because I am a outspoken Black individual, and people don't want to hear from me because I speak truth to power and I'm undiluted. A lot of people see Black people and they expect them to be subservient. I'm the complete opposite, as you can probably hear. So that's why I'm suppressed. So what I do is I do a lot of community work. I work with young people. I speak to lots of young people and I work with them actively, and I use the arts as a medium to get them involved. And then we start talking about issues about socialism. We talk about strikes. We talk about gender-based violence. We talk about trans issues. I do mutual aid. So every couple of months, I'm doing a mutual aid next month, 28th of October, come along, where we go out and we speak to people who are homeless. We speak to them about what we need to do to work together. We provide them with food and sanitary towers and clothes and advice about where they can get help in order to get themselves off the streets. I do a lot of speaking at events. I do a lot of speaking with young people and working with young people. I help people into employment, young people into employment. I've been working with a young person since when he was 14. I've just got him his first job since he's left university. So nobody can ever come to me and tell me that there's not an alternative way to get to speak to people. It's about getting off our butts, getting out of these comfortable studios and getting out on the streets. If I can do it and I've only got like a couple of thousand followers, the Novara media with 500,000 followers just on Twitter can get out of their comfortable studios and get out on the streets, lead mutual aid, lead community activism, lead community building. When was the last time Novara Media ever called for a protest or even attended a protest? Never. They're comfortable and they're safe. Regardless of who wins the next election, they are going to be comfortable and safe. People like me and people who look like me and people who are trans and people who are women and migrants, we're not going to be safe. We're in danger. So it's about time we start utilizing our anger to change this country for the better.
Wow, thank you. No, I really like what you're saying, because I think it's a shortcut to go on a program and try and get 5 minutes with get some points across is a bit easier than what you're doing. I think I can see what you're saying. It's also maybe not as effective as what you're doing in the long term.
No, it's not.
Do you want to come back in, Richard? Do you get what do you agree on that? Do you see what he's saying?
Yeah, I like a lot of what he's doing, but the bit you said that they don't go to protest. I think they were at some sort of there was a protest at some sort of landlord conference, and they were there. They were talking to some of the protesters, and they spoke to the landlord. So maybe I don't think that's the case, that they don't appear at protests, but they have been at protests. I've seen that before. That's all I want to say.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And great show, Crispin.
Thank you, Richard.
I love your show.
In the post. Checks in the post. All right, cheers.
Sorry, Crispin, just to interrupt, I can just see on the chat, Mia, yeah, you're talking about transphobia and ableism. And actually, I believe that Novara Media platforms someone who believes in killing disabled children when they're born. So actually, I think that's another marginalized community that we don't talk about. And I said this to Aaron Bastani. I said to him, when we're talking about the working class people in this country, we always associate working class people being white. That's why as Black people, we always feel like we're on the sidelines. And I said to him, Black people are working class, trans people are working class, disabled people are working class. Again, Aaron Bastani just shifted the conversation and dismissed everything I had to say.
Okay, Marlon, I'm going to bring on Jackie Walker, who's been making a lot of comments in the chat. And what would you like to say, Jackie?
Yeah, I so much agree with so much of what you say, Marlon. Let me just say that first. My experience when I first came into what I'd call the organised left was I was hit with a lot of racism. It was quite a shock. And James, you know yourself, because I've spoken to you about this, the way that Black racism was put far underneath, for example, what was happening with white Jews. And I complained to you about it, and I spoke with you about it, and you knew it was going on, and you did not stand with me in solidarity. Now, I understand why you didn't do that. I understand that at that point, that political point, you decided to do what John McDonnell said to me to do, which was just wait a minute. When we get into power, it will be all right. It's never all right to say that. And we are told that again and again, and we're left waiting. I haven't finished yet, so let me just go on. In terms of Novara Media, James, it's wonderful that you're here. The shameful thing is Novara Media will not come on the rest of the left media. Novara Media have not accepted their responsibility in what has happened to the dialogue on race, where people who are Black, African, gypsies have been put on the bottom of the pile. They and Owen Jones and others helped to do that. The nearest thing that happened was maybe a couple of weeks ago, and she didn't even apologize. Ashla Carr said, it was tough at the time. I couldn't quite cope with what was happening because it was affecting me so badly. But now I can see it might have been a bit of a mistake. Some of us were actually had our public reputations traduced and she had the nerve to call me a crank, and she still hasn't apologized for that. Where are their apologies? So this is about what racism is. This is about how racism works. And my thing, Marlon, I'm going to say to you, right, and this is direct to you. I love most of what you're doing. Please come on Redline TV and talk to me about it. I would really like to contact you and interview you and discuss things with you more. But, and here is my but, if I'm not going to speak to any media who are racist, sexist, misogynist, I ain't speaking to none of those fuckers out there. That's the actual truth. I actually go on, for example, I've even been interviewed by Iranian TV and I'm criticized for that. And do you know what I say to people? If you want me as a left black woman to be able to go on the BBC, who are racist and sexist and misogynist, then I have to also be able to express my point of view to anywhere else. One of my bits of expertise when I was working in expertise with majority white audience. I did all sorts of research on this. That was my job. We do not change minds by being silent with these people. We go on by attacking them and defending them. I'm talking about verbally, and that includes on GB. And in right, that's why I'm paying my respect to James Schneider, because yes, he is going into the lion's den there. And yes, to a certain extent, he's going into the lion's den here as well, because he must know there are many people who are here who saw and felt and experienced what happened under Jeremy Corbyn. And we are yet to get a proper apology for that. Not even an apology, just an admission. We got it wrong. We put that hierarchy in place, and now it's black people who are paying the major cost of that.
Well, thank you, Jackie. I have to go back to you, James. Sorry, there's a lot for you to answer on that point there.
Yeah, a few things. I mean, on Jackie's substantive point about basically going on platforms, I basically entirely agree with, and I that's the logic of doing it. A few other things. I mean, Marlon, I massively appreciate and support your campaigning against GB News. I would like GB News to be taken off the air if that were possible. I'm not a supporter of it as a channel. It's a field of battle, basically, like other ones. And I also like the accountability that you won't agree with what I'm saying with still going on, but I like the fact that you're challenging me on it, and that's why I'm really happy to come here and talk about it, because firstly, I should be accountable to the movements. I'm not going on as a free-floating individual, just like a random person who's got ideas. Like I'm coming out of the left, and it also stiffens the back a bit. Makes it more likely to be a bit more robust, a bit tougher, a bit more, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think that's all good, and I really hope that if anyone ever sees me on it, although I don't understand why anyone would watch the stuff, but if you did, you'll see like I'm not standing shoulder to shoulder with the far right. I'm not spreading their propaganda in the same way as like I did an interview on Times Radio yesterday. Like, that's owned by Rupert Murdoch. It's a bad, it's a bad thing. And again, I wasn't promoting Rupert Murdoch all the times in doing that. Likewise, if I write for The Guardian, I'm not saying that I like their editorial policy or anything else like that. But to come to, I just want to address a couple of things from what Jackie said about the hierarchy of racism and anti-black racism. I think you're in the general point, there was obviously set up a hierarchy of racism. That's what happened in the political campaign, and some types of racism were set against other ones. Part of the hard right's adoption of anti-Semitism as a thing that they campaign against is a way to do Islamophobia, for example. Part of the dark ad attacks against Corbyn in the 2019 election were basically saying he's anti-Semitic because he likes Muslims too much. Like that was the implication, and that needs to be fought against. I mean, on Jackie, on your individual case, on the first time that you were suspended, I did entirely support you, and I think you were entirely correct. And I didn't agree with how you dealt with the second one and your actions then, but I don't think that's about the hierarchy of racism. I think that's specific about a specific set of cases, which we probably don't want to go into in detail here, but I suppose we could if we wanted.
I mean, look, can I just go back on something Jackie said? Jackie said, and also Marlon was talking about, in a way, it's about Novara media. I mean, I remember when, this is going back, James, 2015, I remember going to Momentum's office and saying we should set up a radio station for the left. And everyone was like, oh, I don't know what to talk about. It's too complicated, blah, 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 blah. We haven't got a media of the left. And the ones that are dominating are Owen Jones and Novara Media. And they are not giving people a voice like people on this show, Marlon, other people. There's a serious problem that we don't have a platform. But then the platform that you and Bob are sometimes going on gives you 5 minutes and they kind of undermine what you're saying with someone else. I mean, there was one where Michael Walker was in the back of a pub or something in the corner. You couldn't even see him. I mean, that was how small his role was in that they set him up so badly. You know, why do you think Novara Media and Owen Jones won't deal with people like us and Jackie Walker and Marlon? What is the problem there? Are they gatekeepers for us? That's what I want to ask you, really.
I mean, I do, obviously.
I know you might go on. You might know them and stuff. So just be.
No, but I mean, also, I saw one of the comments like, "Why won't James respond to the things about Novara?" Like, I've been on Novara on some of their shows over the years, but like, I'm not, that I'm not part of it, so I can't really, respond for them, and I don't know. Sorry, all of the details that you're all talking about. But on the broader point of why isn't there a left media, it's extremely expensive. Like, the reason why billionaires own media is because they can just throw money at it to continue their rule. That's why it's there. And I have been involved in efforts to try to bring together alternative media to work together and so on and so forth. And it's difficult because there's not very much money. It's hard, it's hard to do. That doesn't mean it's not necessary. It's incredibly necessary. And obviously, if we had left-wing media, more powerful left-wing media with bigger audiences, that would be a superbly good thing. And therefore, those that have some audiences should try to work together for them.
Okay, well, I'm not sure. But, I mean, I think it's a problem. If there's no platform for the left on then we're taking crumbs from the table on GB News. Can I come back to you?
But hold on. Yes, we need to have a left media. I don't disagree with that. But it's not about taking crumbs from the table. Like, we are trying, let's just be real about what we're trying to do here. We are trying to overturn fundamentally the existing order of society. Like, it's not a small thing that we're talking about doing. That's the struggle that, everybody here is involved in. And the terrain of that struggle is massively stacked against us. Like, the reason why the media is stacked against us is the same as the balance of power in society is massively in the interest of people who own everything, not in the interest of the overwhelming majority of people. So, like, I don't really buy into that's a strategic point. It's not a moralizing point. And so we use the things that are there, or we interrupt the things that are there as much as possible while we build our own. So it's not an either or. Like, yes, we should be building alternative ways to communicate with mass audiences of people, to win people to ideas, give them confidence and organize and mobilize them. But that doesn't mean that you don't interrupt the existing power.
Okay, look, I'm just going to bring Jackie Walker on again. She wants to say something back, and then I'll move on to Bob and Marlon.
James, I'm really, really sorry that you individualized a comment which I made, which was not about how I was treated, but was actually about how Black people were treated. You totally avoided what I was talking about, which was the complicity of Lotto and Momentum at the time in putting the hierarchy of racism in place. I can talk to you till the cows come home about what happened to me. Not interested. not interested. I'm interested in the fact that you were part of an organisation which helped to cement that in. And so the fact that you defend it in that way, I think is just a poor show, James, and I'm really disappointed in you.
I'll give James a chance to come back, but I'll move on to yeah, go on, James.
So, I mean, I thought that you were referring also. Are you? But that's fine. I misinterpreted, but I wasn't doing that as a tactic. I also, in my response, when we look at it back, I first responded to the substantive point, and then I referenced yours. So I've even got my little note here to say general point, then discuss Jackie. So if you weren't raising that, that's totally fine. I'd rather not talk about it. I wasn't trying to do it to miss the overall thing. I mean, we can talk about anti-Semitism and so on and so forth until the cows come home, but no, which I'm happy to, and I'm going to address here. I think that we didn't deal with anti-Semitism, the whole issue, well, because it's got three interconnected elements, all of which we dealt with badly. One, there is more anti-Semitism on the left than we thought there was, even though it's in it's in small numbers. But then there's a larger group of people who don't know anything about it. The second is that it was used and weaponized by our political enemies to make it seem like it was dramatically larger than it was. And the third is a definitional element trying to render to what should be totally legitimate forms of support for the Palestinian people as being anti-Semitic by definition. And we were insufficiently strong on all three of these things. We didn't act strongly enough on all three of these things.
Right. Okay. Look, I think we're getting a bit moving into diverting from what we were saying there. But Bob, what would you like to say? And then I'll come back to you, Marlon.
Yeah, just on the point, the reason I go on these programs is not to get paid. I don't think I have been paid. It's often I have to disrupt my day to go onto these programs. The reason being is somebody needs to challenge the propaganda, the divide and rule that they are pumping out. And when I do go on there, I try to explain to their audience that the messaging coming out of GB News and other organizations, similar organizations, is to divide us all. And the people who are going to be screwed by what they're doing to the NHS is not black or white, it's black and white. It's the poor, it's the elderly. And the targets of the privatization, funnily enough, aren't the poor and the elderly. They're going to be left to die. The targets are the middle class right-wingers. They're the ones who are going to be screwed of their money and wealth through insurance. So that's why I go on these platforms. And just to dip into the anti-Semitism row, it is Labour's response to the anti-Semitism row that made it such a big problem. That it was their response was totally self-destructive, to keep apologizing, to keep giving ground, to not support people who put their heads on the line, to ostracize people like Chris Williamson. That showed a totally self-defeating strategy, which is partly responsible for why we're here now. And not to get rid of Keir Starmer when he asked for a second ballot on Brexit was a disaster. These were self-inflicted massive disasters for which I haven't heard a clear apology.
Right. Thank you, Bob. And this is really so many people want to talk. Marlon, thank you for coming on. You know what impressed me so much about what you did with that video was that you went out there and face to face and recorded it, and that's what we need to do more. We can do tweets and fire tweets at people saying you're a sellout, whatever it is, but if you don't actually go out there and confront them, that is so fantastic. And it's good. And I have to say, James, it's good that you've come on and also that you answered what Marlon was saying on the time he saw you outside GB News. But what would you like to say to finish, Marlon? I'll leave it with you. And people can come back a bit later to talk who's got their hands up.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make 3 points going back to the issue. I do think it's important to speak truth to power. We're seeing a lot of it happening in America. A lot of people speaking truth to power to the squads who have actually sold themselves out. ALC being the main one of them, who said she was going to go in there and cause a ruckus, but actually sided on the side of Joe Biden. We've seen it from the Merseyside Pensioners Association. I forget her name, who confronted Sir Keir Starmer as well. So I think we need to do that as well. In June, I'm a member of Cop Watch, and in Tottenham, we went to the opening of the police station there, and Sir Mark Rowley was there, and I confronted him, and I said to him, why are you refusing to use the term institutionally racist when it's been a term used in the Macpherson report and the term used in the case report this year? He ignored me, he cut the ribbon, he ran off. Luckily, the ITV News were there, and it changed the whole narrative of the day. So rather than them focusing on the new police station, they actually asked him, why do you not use the term institutionally racist? And he was squirming under pressure. So actually, when we go out on the streets, we can actually change the narrative, and we can actually inform people in a different way from our perspective without having to sit on the side of right-wingers like GB News. 2 more points, please. What happened to Ava on GB News this week was disgusting. What happened to Kelechi Okafor almost 4 weeks ago was disgusting as well. But in many people's eyes, Black women are deemed less worthy of humanity and empathy than their white counterparts, which is why there was outrage and justice for Ava, but very little for Kelechi. How many people on this call know who Kelechi is? How many people who know who Ava is? I want you lot to think about that. Last point. This is regard to Novara Media and Aaron Bastani. Aaron Bastani has been critical of Black Pound Day. He called it not progressive. He allowed a white woman to call me aggressive, Michelle Dubray. And when I said to him, aggressive is a racial trope, he laughed it off. So obviously he's ignorant. He said Novara Media and Owen Jones policed the online left, and he weaponized the murder of Mark Duggan. When we challenged him about his anti-racist tropes, he weaponized the name of Mark Duggan, a man shot dead by the police in Tottenham. That says what he is like. And last point in regards to Owen Jones. Owen Jones, when I confronted Owen Jones a few years ago, he called the police on me to get me arrested. He falsely accused me of sexual harassment and harassment. I had to go to the police. Luckily, I had a plethora of evidence to show that I was innocent. If this is the left, I don't want any part of it.